Welcome everyone to our lunch and learn today on the state of solar. I'm going to go over a couple of housekeeping items before we dive into the program today. First off, this is a webinar, so we're going to ask everyone to stay on mute the whole time so that we can minimize any background noise. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, we do have a couple breaking points for questions. So I just ask that you put those in the chat so that we can organize them and I can ask them to Barrett during those two times. So if you have questions along the way, put them in the chat, or during our specific Q&A breaks, you can put them in the chat as well. I also am recording the program, so the program will be sent out, recording will be sent out afterwards in a follow-up email, along with a PDF of the slides, our speaker's contact information, and any resources that we talk about. You'll get that all after the program is done. So we'll go through some introductions first before I pass it over. I'm Sam. I'm with Sustain Dane. We're a nonprofit, sustainability nonprofit that's located in Madison, serving all of Dane County, and we've been around for over 25 years. We are a resource to both individuals and businesses to learn, connect, and take action for sustainability. We can help you out with your projects. We host lots of educational programs. We collect your food scraps at farmers markets. We can do some energy efficiency upgrades if you are living in or own any multifamily housing. So we do lots of programs. I'll make sure to include some of that in the follow-up email, as well as our upcoming programs that we have coming up in the next couple of months. So we hope to see you again in person or online. But today we're here to talk about solar. So as communities and businesses work to address climate change, renewable energy has become one of the most impactful tools we have to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and so that we can build a more resilient future. Solar power continues to grow as a viable energy solution, offering long-term saving potential while reducing reliance on fossil fuels. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to today's speaker, Barrett, to introduce himself.
Everybody, as it says, my name is Barrett. I am the business development lead and also a partner here at Midwest Solar. Just a quick intro for those who don't know, Midwest Solar Power has been in Madison since 2009. We've installed over 750 residential systems to date, plus many more commercial. Yeah, so we serve Dane County and the surrounding counties pretty much. We do go a little further, but pretty local. All right. So just a quick overview. Again, these slides will go out, so if there's any extra or anything that has a lot of content, you'll be able to look at them later. Just going to kind of go through each of these sections. Basically, after section 4 is when we'll have our first break for questions, and then we'll also have a period at the end for questions. And then this is just a fun little slide that we've made to just kind of give a simple overview of how solar works. This system is set up with microinverters, which is what we typically use. String inverters would be slightly different. Obviously, you see microinverters represented under each panel. So the sun hits the panel, excites some electrons, starts pumping out DC electricity, which flows to the inverter. That changes it to what we use in the house, which is AC, and then eventually back to the home and or to the grid. So how has solar evolved over the last couple decades? First off, in early 2000, you were looking at 10 to 12% panel efficiency, whereas today we're at upwards of 23, and I think there's thresholds of pushing things even further than that. So they'll keep continuing in that direction. Of course, can't not mention the cost. So in 2005, close to $9 a watt for a system that was installed. And today, for us here at Midwest Solar, we're quite often in the $2.50 to $3 a watt range systems installed. That's not the price of the panel, that's the full system installed. And then, of course, net metering is really helpful, allows us to produce energy Even if we're not using it, send it out to the grid, get credits, use it at night or use it later in the month or in the year, depending on the utility. Um, every utility is different, so not all are the same. Sometimes you can have a neighbor on a different utility and they get a different program than you. So I wanted to show you an example of a system we installed in 2010. This is a Sharp panel. It was 230 watts. It was 14% efficiency. If you see in the lower left, there's a graph, and that's their actual energy production since 2010. And you'll see that it's pretty consistent year over year. Um, and there's a reason for that, which is how you size a solar panel with the inverter. So this was paired with Enphase microinverters, one of their earlier versions. And essentially, the panel has not degraded to the point where the microinverter is really not able to be at maximum power output. So I looked at a couple points, and you'll see 2011, 6.4 megawatt hours, 2025, 6.4, um, maintaining that 4.1 kW output throughout the entire time. And then just an example of what it looks like on the roof. These are the older panels, so they had silver frame. An interesting thing, we had to service the microinverters on this. So we took a panel off, and you can see where the panel was, the shingles are a lot less degraded. One of the biggest things that degrade the shingles is actually the sun. So UV breaks down those shingles. And then this is an example of a system we installed last year. These are 450 watt REC alpha panels, alpha pure, installed with Enphase IQ8X microinverters. So you can see the efficiency 22%, so significantly higher than that 2010 system. So again, you're looking at significant price decreases. Still, even today, we're seeing a lot of 8 to 12 year ROIs without the tax credit. Um, again, what's driving that? The utility rates are guaranteed to continue to go up. That's one thing for sure. Pricing of equipment and our ability to bring system costs down will also continue to improve. Um, there are some remaining incentives like focus on energy, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And there are more and more cases of homes being increased in value with solar being added. Something that's nice to say to a new homeowner is that, hey, your electric bill is going to basically be, 10, $20 a month for the next 15 years or whenever they move into the house. And I just wanted to show you an example of for us, what we do for an ROI analysis. So that's your return on investment. So this is a system we actually installed this year. So you can see we're projecting 9-year ROI. That's assuming electricity goes up 3.3%. Um, you could obviously say that it's gone up a lot more than 3.3% in the last couple of years, and it will continue to go up higher. That is based off of a 25-year trend that we look at. So we're usually pretty conservative, but good news is, well, bad news is electricity costs go up, hurts everyone. Good news is if you have solar, that shortens your payback time. Then we have the inverter technologies and how have they kind of changed. Um, everything started with the string inverter. You had single strings. If one panel in that string had issues, the whole string was down. Um, we still install them today, and they're great for systems that are simple, right? If there's a lot of sun, you don't have a lot of arrays or roof planes, and you don't have a need for individual panel monitoring, the string inverter is a good way to cut some costs off your system. We install primarily microinverters on residential. They're really helpful with all the complex roof planes, different shading. It's really helpful if there is an issue with a panel, we're able to see exactly what item it is. You know, we could see very clearly if somebody's system had damage from this last hailstorm, um, and which panels actually had the damage with before even getting out to the site. You can do the same thing with a string inverter that has panel level optimizers. But again, these are all things that are continuously improving and will continue to improve. A fun one is recycling, and it's pretty necessary. So I just wanted to first give this one to Sam. You can talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, thanks, Barrett. So like Barrett just mentioned, the recent hailstorms, you may have seen some damaged panels on tops of people's roofs. And we also had a couple of different both solar companies and individuals reach out to us about maybe what to do with their damaged solar panels because they wouldn't have been at the end of their life, but they were because of the hail damage. So I put my head down. I reached out to a bunch of people. I did a lot of research, and I was able to come up with a list of local places that you can take your solar panels to be recycled if they're damaged or reach the end of their life. Barrett grabbed a screenshot of the article that we wrote and put it on the screen here. So this is a full-fledged blog on our website that I'll include in the follow-up email. But there's some local companies like Resource Solutions and Dynamic Life Cycle Innovations, and then as well as Dane County Clean Sweep take some solar panel recycling loads as well. There's some different fees and different stipulations with these, so definitely take time to read or give a call ahead of time if you have any questions. But like I said, I'll include this in the follow-up email, but super important, and I'll let Barrett talk more about the rest.
Great. Thank you, Sam. Yeah, so we actually in-house will take care of recycling. Obviously, if you have your own, these are great resources. We do use them as well. Sometimes we use some of the non-local, depending on how many and the cost, but it's really great to see local development. I think that's really important. So, what's inside a solar panel to be recycled? There are so many different minerals in there that we can reuse and then put back into solar panels themselves again. And I'm just going to play this quick video that gives a really good overview.
This year, globally, we will manufacture over 1 billion solar panels, and it's estimated that by 2050, there will be potentially over 100 billion solar panels installed.
That's 10 times more panels than people.
That's because we figured out how to make these solar panels really efficiently and cost effectively at scale. But with that comes a new set of challenges. At SolarCycle, our mission is to make solar more scalable and sustainable through mining old solar panels to make the next generation of solar panels with.
There is so much silver, there is so much copper, there is so much aluminum, there is so much glass in all of these panels that we as a company can go out there, collect those panels, and then turn them into the next wave of solar panels.
We developed an end-to-end solution with our own technology developed in-house to recycle these panels, starting first with removing the aluminum frame, because aluminum is also needed for the next generation of solar panels. It's needed for things like electric cars, and the aluminum that we get, when we recycle it, it uses 95% less energy than the aluminum that's produced from using virgin bauxite mined out of the ground. And so the benefits of what we're doing and creating the circular economy is beyond climate, but also it's creating jobs and it's creating the infrastructure and domesticating a very important part of our new energy mix and really repower the way we bring our energy to homes, to buildings, to cars, and power a more sustainable future for all of us. This is all part of a movement that will make solar the cleanest and most renewable form of energy generation on the planet. What we need in order to do this is partners. We work with the leading manufacturers, the leading asset owners and utilities, leading engineering, procurement, construction companies. They're all working with us to create this recycling infrastructure because we can provide them cost-effective recycling services that are going to create a more sustainable future for us all.
So I liked that video just because it gives a breakdown of how they actually do some of the deconstruction of the panels and what you can do with it. So if there's anybody out there that is an entrepreneur and likes to look into businesses, I think there's a great opportunity, even here in the Midwest, to get stuff going. The last thing I wanted to cover real briefly is batteries. There's a ton we could go into, but just want to show you, this is a system we installed just last year. That's 20 kilowatt hours of battery storage. The two boxes on the right, the box to the left of that, the Enphase box, is the combiner 6. So that's what the microinverters go into, the batteries, all the communication, load shedding, etc. There's advancements in sodium ion batteries that'll be coming out, solid state batteries. The prices are coming down. We're seeing more interest, so just keep your eyes on it. But get quotes. They still aren't super cheap, so it's still an investment. All right, let's get into incentives real quick. Obviously, in Wisconsin, there are no more federal incentives on the residential side. The incentive that we do have focus on energy right now is 2,400 for basically you have to have a 4 kW system to get that. They do it 600 per kW, but most systems, 99% of what we install are over that, so 2,400. They have pretty much said that they're good through systems that have been installed and given PTO through August 31st. And then after that, they will reassess and see if they are going to lower that rate or lower that rebate or continue at that same amount. There are things like the HERE program, that's for electrifying your home. It's not directly solar related, but you can use it to upgrade your main service. So if you have 100 amp, you can go to 200 amp and get money for that. Just so that everyone understands, there is no way to get the federal tax credit for residential systems in Wisconsin. We don't allow third-party ownership or solar leasing. And that, because where that falls in is under a commercial tax credit, which some states allow it, but not here in Wisconsin. There are also other programs like Madison and some, municipalities have their own programs. Of course, the rising energy costs are sort of an incentive, but basically the more it goes up, the quicker your payoff. If you've got an EV, it certainly is definitely economically beneficial to have solar and charge your EV from the sun at your home. And then a future benefit is backup power from your vehicle. Vehicle to home is right around the corner. There are systems out there. Enphase is going to come out probably later this year. Basically, they have to work out relationships with the car manufacturers. The technology is there. It's just the handshakes at this point. And then real quick, commercial solar. In case anybody has a business or knows a business, you can still get tax credits. It's under 48E. That's a 30% tax credit. There's some adders. There are key dates. And again, this will be in the slides. I'm happy to answer questions as we either at the question point or afterwards. And then the one other added benefit, there are commercial battery tax credits will continue even further than the solar tax credits. And with that, we're at our midway point. So got any
Awesome.
questions?
Yeah, a couple of them trickling in. I know you literally just said that tax credits for battery storage commercially, but someone just asked about maybe if you could share a little bit more on any tax credits tied to battery storage systems with solar PV.
Yep. So the only Battery storage tax credits right now are for commercial. So if it's a residential, you cannot get a tax credit. There are the same restrictions as the solar for commercial, which are under what's called FEOC, Foreign Entity of Concern. Basically, they're monitoring, measuring how much components can come out of China, how much ownership can come out of China. You have to hit all the metrics to qualify for those tax credits, but it is 30% tax credit on commercial batteries.
Cool. Thank you. Um, and next, might not be complete in your wheelhouse, but if you have any input, if you could share a little bit more about the potential benefits of battery storage, even if you don't have solar, especially if you use time of use rates and perhaps have an EV.
Yes, so if you don't have solar, or even if you do, because of net metering, there isn't a ton of benefit here in Wisconsin at this point. If you are time of use, then there is a benefit to say, okay, I can get energy into my battery when it's cheap or when the solar is producing, and then use that in the home later when rates are higher. Um, Due to net metering, if you have solar, you just produce your solar, export it to the grid, you're good to go. Usually you have a single rate. But yeah, so essentially you're just trying to, if you have only battery, you're just trying to purchase energy when it's cheap and store it in the battery and then use it later when it's expensive. The other added benefit is having backup power during an outage.
Great, thanks, Barrett. One other person said, can you explain a little bit more about leasing not being accepted? They have a provider that is offering installing the panels on a leasing program for 5 years.
It, as far as I know, there is no leasing possible in the state of Wisconsin. I can dig into that more, but
Okay.
yeah, it's not allowed.
Okay, cool. One question that I had, you talked a little bit about the trends of what we've seen over the past couple decades. Anything that like made you really excited to see, like what exciting trends you've seen over the past couple decades, or maybe we'll soon see come to fruition soon?
Um, I actually have seen quite a lot of solar adoption in rural areas. And what that tells me is that the general public, where there's a wider audience finally realizing the value. Um, so I look forward to seeing solar in more neighborhoods outside of the main cities. And then the other trend is just the improving technology. It's it's continuing to improve rapidly and prices coming down. So I really have high hopes that in the future, in a very short future, that the general person can have solar on their home.
Awesome. And then we'll do one last one before we'll get into the second half. And like Barrett mentioned, we'll have time for questions at the end. And feel free to stop me on this one, Barrett, if you think you'll touch on it more in the second half. But someone asked, considering storms have becoming more intense, are there panels that are less likely to damage with hail?
Yes, I will get into that in upcoming slides.
Okay,
That's a
awesome.
great
Then feel free to
question.
continue.
All right. So when you are thinking about solar, what to do to prepare. Um, this is a nice, checklist for you to think about. Um, for your electrical, we're always going to be looking at what size panel you have. This may change in the future with code. Um, there's all different types of code and they're always being updated, but right now we're limited by the size of the electrical panel uh, busing and the breaker, and I'll get into that later. Your roof age and type, right? The newer the roof, the better. So if you're thinking in the next 5 years you want to get solar, plan to remove or reinstall a new roof in that time, unless your roof is brand new. We installers, we love to install on asphalt, shingle, and standing seam metal roofs. Those two are really the top. We can install on other specialty roofs, but those take a lot more planning and coordination. But if you want something special, reach out to a solar installer well ahead of time to learn what you need to do. Um, if you have trees that you can trim, or you're thinking about placements of something that might potentially shade your roof, this is an opportunity to think about, hey, that south-facing roof, I want to leave that alone because I know I'm going to put solar up there eventually. Roof structure, most new homes, anything really after the 80s, have a truss roof, and those typically tend to have no issues with installing solar. Um, but if you have a rafter roof, then we may need to do some modifications, which is it's common. We do it. You go in and you essentially sister a board to it, reinforce it. We run calculations to see if we need to do that. Get your energy usage. Make sure you've got 12 months or 24 months is even better. Um, if you're thinking about batteries, then you really want to get granular. You want to know your kind of instantaneous draw, maybe monitor multiple circuits, and then know what your goals are for the future. Are you going to electrify further? Are you going to plan to have an EV, heat pumps? All these things will increase your electrical usage. So just knowing that ahead of time can really help you plan. Um, once you're actually ready, basically it takes about 3 to 4 months to get from your initial consultation to your system being turned on. That's speaking for us at Midwest Solar. Sometimes it can be quicker, or if it's crazy busy, it can be longer. Like last year when the tax credits ran out, we had a 6 month lead time. Um, the reasons you want to do solar exploration easy, it just will save you money in the future when you actually go to do solar. Um, it'll help your process go quicker. You can discover what your utility offers for their net metering program and just planning out for the future. So when you're actually ready to get solar, you're going to want to get 3 bids. That's our general rule. It's up to you, of course, but it's really beneficial to get a few. Um, of course, we say go all local. There are plenty of local installers here in Wisconsin that are great, and you can check out their Google reviews. Most of us are sitting at almost all 5 stars. You can go with regional if you want to see what that's like as well. If you had a neighbor or a friend or a family member refer you to someone and they had a good experience, we have people that they don't even go with anybody else. They don't even look, right? They just come to us. But maybe get in one more bid just to check. That's up to you. It depends on how much you trust that person. One thing that's really important when you're comparing systems is to compare apples to apples. Biggest thing is system size. Uh, doesn't matter because if two companies are putting the same array in the same spot and one has an extra panel than the other, or it's a higher kilowatt, um, and they say, oh, we're going to get more energy production. Well, that's because they have an extra panel. So know your system size. Panel brand, still important. There are things to compare there. Same thing with inverter types. I would say, really look for similar warranties across the board. Try and get them close to the same, if not the same equipment. Again, have the newest roof you possibly can. That system will last for 25 plus years, 30 years. You really don't want to put it up and take it down. We do have people that do that and they know they're going to do that and they plan for it. But if you can avoid it, that's cost saving. One thing to note, it shouldn't really happen, but it does happen. Price changes after a site visit. Um, but usually most of us are pretty good at knowing what is happening or what's going to happen from a site visit. That's where we're getting the real final details. For us, it's extremely rare for a price change to happen after we've given our quotes and just get final clarity before signing any contracts. And take your time. If anybody's rushing you on a contract, it's it's your own project. Take your time. And then plan for financing. Figure out how you're going to finance the system. Are you going to get a HELOC? Go with your local credit union. There's a program called Leg Up Solar Loan that services Dane County and several other counties. Um, a lot of customers pay cash. Um, there are companies that also offer in-house financing. I would always ask, you know, what's the interest rate, of course. If it seems like market interest rate, then it's probably a pretty standard no fee, no dealer fee. Um, but then there are ones that have lower interest rate, and they tend to have dealer fees, which that gets tacked into the cost of the project. And that's why it's important to get multiple bids, so that way you can really compare the forecast of how it's going to play out financially. And at least so you know what a typical payment schedule is for us and a lot of the local installers. We'll tend to do a deposit on the contract signing. For us, it's 1,000, could be up to a third of the project. This is usually what gets your spot locked in on the calendar, and we begin um, diagrams and permit submissions. Then 1 month prior to the installation, we'll usually ask for half. Some will do a third. This covers your equipment procurement, and really is just the beginning of the main portion of your project. And then the final payment, which is the remainder. This should always be after permission to operate and the system is verified and working. It should be fully operational before getting that final invoice. And the last thing we'll talk about is equipment and warranties. Just some things that we like to look for. Most panels today on the residential side are 25 plus years. There should be the manufacturer warranty as well as the production guarantee. The production guarantee really shouldn't be less than 85% at 25 years. Most of them now are getting 90 up to 92%, and some are going out to 30-year marks. If you get a really good deal on some panels and you're really trying to cut as much cost and you're okay taking the risk with a lower warranty panel, you can certainly do that. Just remember the system will be up there for 25, 30 years. So um, it's always there's trade-offs. So the main panel that we install, which is REC, also offers a 25-year labor reimbursement warranty. Um, Most panels really, they don't have issues, so we don't really use it, but it's nice to have. Um, One last thing to think about, and we've seen this quite a lot recently, is panels change. They go out of production, they change the format. So once your panels are up there, it's even like 3 years out, sometimes less. It's pretty hard to find the same panel to put back in. Um, Sorry, somebody was
No,
trying to
you're
share their
good. I see
screen.
that message. I think it's on your screen. Did it show up on yours,
Well,
Bert?
yeah, there's no other things showing up if you don't see another screen.
Oh, I
Do you
see.
still do you still just see my slides?
You're good now. Yep.
Okay. Um, yeah, and then this is where we're going to get into we're talking about that the changes in weather. So, as we all know, back in mid-April, we had a catastrophic hailstorm. We at Midwest Solar have never seen on our residential panels hail damage. So this was the first time. Um, Even our thickest tempered glass panels did see damage when they were directly hit, but there's not much you can do with a baseball falling from the sky. But what you can do is look for 3.2 millimeter tempered glass. That's your best bet. Still, they can be broken. Um, but we definitely saw that most of those, we saw less damage in those panels. So that's less things to replace, less of a headache. And if the hail is smaller, maybe you won't see any damage at all, where the thinner glass panels will break. We personally don't install 1.6 millimeter glass anymore. We've just seen it damaged too many times in different places. So our minimum in-house is 2 millimeter tempered. Again, talk to your installer, know the risks. Maybe you're going to save some money. Maybe it's worth it. Maybe it's not. One thing to note, we have found that the homeowner's insurance has been covering the hail damaged panels. However, solar panels do not cover, they do not warranty for hail damage. So if your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover it, then nobody else will cover that. But we found that they've all been covered in this round of hail. With the difficulty of, if the panel's old, we have to get a different panel, which is fine. It just takes a little more work, and it's just the nature of what we've been dealing with. And then the other thing to remember, if you're installing thinner glass, if homeowners insurance change their policy, and nobody's going to cover it, it could be a potential risk. Just to remember, that panel will be up there for over 25 years. Okay, so I wanted to get into the site visit. Every company does it differently, but I want to give you a little overview of our site visit. We do a 90-minute assessment, sometimes longer. We're looking at electrical, we're looking at the attic and in the attic, and we're looking on the roof. We're pretty thorough, and it's just a process we like. We like to ensure that everything is prepared, and when our project managers go to get this project ready, there aren't surprises for them. And I want to go over some examples. Here's some reasons why we are so detailed. The numbers on the left, don't worry too much about that, but it's why we pay so much attention. Basically, there's a couple codes that we have to follow, and that dictates how much solar we can actually backfeed inside an electrical panel, until future code changes. But for now, this is what we're dealing with. Both of these are two separate electrical panels, and they're both rated at 100 amps. Interestingly, they both, when you open the door on the inside, it says 125 amps. So the picture on the right, you can see the 125 amp max. So if we assumed that, it would say that we could have backfed 50 amps of solar based on the code. However, if you take the cover off, on the inside of that electrical panel, there's a sticker. And that sticker is actually for the busing. And on that sticker, it shows 100 amp maximum, which then that limits us to 20 amps of backfed solar. So if we had assumed it was 125, we would have gotten there and we would have realized we had to change everything up. So that's why it's really important to look at those things. We're also verifying that there's spaces in the panel. If last minute you have to add a sub panel or do all these changes, it's a pain for the crew. So we're trying to make it efficient for our crew, and just so everybody knows what's going on. Then looking up inside a roof, or inside an attic, we're looking for rafters and or trusses. Rafters, depending on the size, so these are 2 by 6, 16-inch spacing. They this one actually will find sometimes the spacing isn't exactly the same. Um, this one, I don't think we had to do any reinforcement to after calculations were ran. But if we did, we would be sistering boards basically from the eave or the bottom all the way up to the ridge or the peak. Sometimes you can do partial boards, which is called scabbing. Again, we do those calculations. City of Madison, they all have to be submitted to the city and approved, which we do all of that. Other things we look for in the attic might be mold. If we see mold or evidence of leakage, those are things we want to point out to the customer, but also we want to have dealt with before installing solar on that roof. We can also check to see what the decking type is. These are 3/4 inch boards versus, OSB plywood. Um, it can tell us more about what's sitting on that roof. For the insulation, typically we walk through. If it's a truss roof, we'll walk typically up on the trusses. Those are easier to walk. If it's something like this was actually somebody else had been up there doing a bunch of work, and I could see where they had left their trails. They didn't do any work to refluff the insulation. So one of the things we do is as we go back out, we refluff everything. We're really trying to minimize our impact on the insulation. And then lastly, we're getting up on the roof. We need to see what the shingles look like, remaining life. Are there obstructions on the roof that you can't see in imagery? So a lot of people use online imagery, but oftentimes there's things that you just can't see on it or something changes. It's good to know that before we get out there. We also take shading on the roof. So we're actually looking at the shading from the rooftop with a device, because again, imagery is fairly good, but what can often happen is it could be 10 years old, so a tree grows a lot in 10 years. New building, there's a lot that can change, so we just really like to put eyes on it, get actual measurements. This is what we use, called Solmetric Sun Eye. You can see an image in there. That is not the image of that roof because this image has leaves on the trees. Again, so the yellow here is showing, okay, that's where in that spot the sun will be hitting that point. And the way it works is it's mapped out every month and the time across each day. And so that's the solar path. And you can see on the bottom, May, June versus the top is your winter months. And so you can see like the tree in the very top is shading only in the winter. But one benefit is in the winter, most of those leaves will fall off, so you'll still get some sun. But we're typically conservative. We're trying not to overestimate your energy production. There are companies and there is good technology out there for using drones to basically get the imagery, to create 3D imagery of the whole system. That's certainly a viable method. So then basically from there, our full program should see is really an estimate, kind of get an overview, get some price right away. And then if you're happy, you sign up for that site visit. Again, this should be free. You shouldn't be paying for a site visit. From that's where things are verified. And then we're getting to the quote. And then a quote is given. Again, still no commitment. You are free to ask for another quote, different designs, compared to other quotes you've gotten. Again, no commitment should be given at this point until you're actually ready to move forward and sign a contract. Which then at that point you can learn what the payment process is, all the stipulation, everything should be spelled out well ahead of time. So just a quick recap on the things we went over. Um, how has solar evolved? The cost has come down significantly, and the efficiencies have gone up, and both of those will continue. Um, if you're wondering, because the tax credits went away, should I look at solar? 100%. I mean, right now your incentive is the rising cost of energy. And it's just energy security. It's great to be producing energy where you live. And if you have batteries, you have resiliency. Uh, there's just so many reasons to continue getting solar, and not wait if you have the means. Incentives in Wisconsin focus on energy. They have their state rebates. They're actually in the process of planning out the next 3 years. So hopefully they will come out with the same amount or more. And then the rising energy rates. I guess that's certainly an incentive. Commercial solar, still the same thing as residential. You get the focus on energy, but you do have the federal tax credits available for commercial solar, through the end of 2027. There is another date. Again, if you have questions, ask me. Happy to answer them after. Uh, Preparing for solar, it's never too early. Reach out to good local installers. We have people that reach out and they don't get solar for like 5 years. And I'm happy to answer every single question, for no commitment at any point. Just get that knowledge. Don't be afraid to reach out. We're certainly not going to pressure you into anything. We just want you to know, even if it's the right thing for you to do. And then when you're ready, get 3 bids. You don't have to, but we love it if you go local. And then equipment and warranties, 25 plus years should really stick out in your head for residential. Commercial, tends to be a little bit less, but 25 years on the residential side. Both our panels, our racking, and our microinverters are all 25 plus years. And try and compare apples to apples. And then get a site visit. If somebody doesn't want to do a site visit, just know that there are risks involved. Yeah, so that's where I'm at, Sam. If we want to jump into
Awesome.
some questions, I see them coming in.
Yeah, thanks for lots of information, but lots of good information. Yep, I've copied down some questions. We'll get through as many as we can. If you need to hop off, we will be sending the recording out afterwards, and I'll also send the questions we don't get to Barrett, and he can type up a response, and I can include that in the follow-up email as well. We'll also be sharing Barrett's contact information if you want to talk further about any of these questions. The first question we have, is it possible slash a good idea to install solar panels on a low pitch rubber roof?
Yes, it's definitely possible. Residential, it depends on the roof type. You could do ballasted. If it's high of enough of a slope, you can actually attach to it, and we've done it a few different ways. And you can do it so that it's sealed. There's a type of you match the rubber membrane, whether it's TPO or EPDM, and you seal it up, just like a lot of other different ways you would attach things to a rubber roof. Happy to send someone examples after.
Next, what kind of electrician can assess your home to determine the best ways to upgrade? Example, batteries, panels, EV, different appliances.
Um,
It's a little bit more general.
yeah, I really, you're just going to want to reach out to an electrical company that deals with heat pumps and EV chargers. Um, Again, well, heat pumps is typically going to be HVAC, so the electrician may not fully know. There, a lot of solar contractors are fairly in tune with other aspects. but I guess I would start with Focus on Energy. They have good resources. I'm
Yeah.
actually you probably have stuff too at Sustain Dane, but
Yeah, I was just going to share the focus on energy too. I would always recommend getting an energy assessment for your house if you haven't
yeah.
had one of those yet, so that can tell you where maybe there's some holes and things that need to be upgraded or filled in your home. And then, yeah, Focus on Energy has a good kind of contractor tool that you can search for and even see the ones that are registered in order to get the rebates of the different incentives out there besides solar, like the other rebates for other electrification upgrades and whatnot. So that's a great resource if I can include that in the follow-up email. Next question. They said it's unfortunate that inverter type you already have installed is likely to not be compatible with battery storage and B2H. Are you running into that? What do you recommend to people to keep their options open for a later time to go with storage?
Well, actually, it's getting close enough where pretty much there is a solution for almost any inverter type, no matter what age. So a lot of them have realized this and they're adopting ways to basically incorporate third-party solar or older generations of inverter types. So really in the short term, as long as you're willing to spend the money on it, right? There may not be a very cost-effective way to do it, but there are solutions pretty much for any inverter type to get
Cool.
included with storage.
Awesome. Someone else asked if you're getting a new home built, can a solar system ever be included in the price of the house and hence have monthly payments, or is it always independent?
Yeah, so you can work with your contractor. So we actually do this with a few contractors where we get paid by the contractor so that the solar is included in the home loan.
Awesome. Someone said that they've been hearing about for the past 10 years the development of roofing shingles that incorporate solar panel technology. Has there been any updates on that?
Uh, I know that it is continuing to improve. We don't work with them specifically. There are local installers that do it in Dane County. In terms of the cost, you can reach out and get a quote and see where that is. I don't know the specifics on efficiencies there, but I would assume like all solar, it should only be getting better.
Yeah, we have a local Sustain Day member, Sunvault Roofing, that has been doing some technology with this. They might even be on the call. So I'd recommend looking them up on their website and maybe reaching out, reach out to John or something for any questions and to know more about it. Next one we got, are people still able to get green mortgages? This person did a green refi back in 2021. Was curious if you knew if they were still available in Wisconsin.
That's a good question. I will look into it, but I don't know the answer.
Cool. Me too. I'm curious now. Um, Someone had a question specifically about the incentives, the one you mentioned that ends in August, just where they can learn more information, where they can look more into that.
Um, that's Focus on Energy. Yep. So if you go on to the Focus on Energy website, they list all the incentives, both residential and for businesses. And just to clarify, it doesn't end in August. It may change. They have to reassess their funds and they reallocate. And this is pretty consistent with them. It might not change, but
Yeah,
yeah.
great. Yeah, we'll include Focus on Energy link in the follow-up email as well. There's lots of great resources for incentives and contractors and stuff in there. Um, this question is a little bit bigger picture, maybe dreaming big a little bit. Is there a way to promote solar use on multifamily dwellings and commercial operations? It's distressing to see so much new construction around Dane County without solar panels.
Yes. So WIDA is a program, and a lot of new builds get funding through that. And one of the stipulations is green building, and solar is a point process for that. So that's one way. I believe there's actually been an update in building code so that all new commercial buildings have to be solar ready. Um, but really just advocating in general. We are seeing more new construction um, ask for solar to be bid. Whether it happens or not is unknown. Um, Best way is uh, regulation, and if you know anybody in the industry, just point them to the benefits of solar and how that'll help the overall ROI of the building, added value, and things like that.
Great. Those were all our questions from the chat. Maybe I just want to give you one last chance, Barrett, if you have like a final takeaway to share with our group, or maybe your hope and vision for the future of solar. Some last words.
Yeah. So takeaways: don't be afraid to reach out. It's better to ask questions than to make assumptions and um, do something that doesn't make sense. Be prepared, prepare early, get it included if you're doing a new build. Um, there's a lot of technology and there's a lot of noise out on the media. So don't take that at heart. Things take time, and even if something comes out and they say it's the newest and greatest, guaranteed there are flaws. We do that. We see that all the time with new technology. They rush stuff onto the market, and it's the early adapters deal with all of the struggles of actually getting it integrated. So I'm always a little wary of the newest and greatest in stuff around solar, especially storage. Um, yeah, my hope is that it will be on every new build, every commercial building. Um, Hopefully we can get rid of more red tape that makes it difficult to do projects on buildings and over parking lots. Um, I've been seeing a meme where it says, "Don't put solar in the fields, put it on the parking lots." And it's like, yeah, but it's like 3 times more expensive, and there's way more regulation, and the legislators and the code and municipalities aren't making it very easy. So push where you can push.
Yeah,
We
we
definitely
need
want more
solar,
solar.
solar everywhere. Yeah, everyone hopefully can be an advocate for it now, continue to learn, continue to ask questions and share more. We're at 1 o'clock, so thank you all so much for joining our Lunch and Learn. Like I said, I'll be sending out a follow-up email with the resources and recording and slides. Also know that Sustain Dane is here for a resource if you have any other questions or projects that you want to take sustainability steps on. Otherwise, I hope to see you at an upcoming program. I'll include those in the follow-up email as well. We have some fun ones in July from things from learning about recycling with our Recycle Better course. We have a sustainable breakfast series on freshwater mussels and the importance of water conservation and some endangered species. And then we also have a fundraiser and volunteering social at Old Beer Garden at the end of the month. So lots of stuff going on. Check out that follow-up email for all the info. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.